Those of you who are just coming to my channel for the first time, welcome. I am Lori Vallow, Daybell's first cousin. We grew up together. We spent time together as children. I lived with Lori and Adam in Austin for a short time when we were both young adults. Her oldest son, Colby, is just a little bit younger than my oldest daughter. And I spent a lot of time with the entire Cox family when they lived in San Antonio for about 10 years. When I say entire, I mean Janice and Barry and Alex lived here. Summer did not. Adam did not. And Lori was kind of back and forth. She would have Barry take care of Colby while she was working in Austin. She lived in Austin for quite some time and was down in San Antonio for family gatherings, etc. So that is the reason why I comment on this case. My main goal in talking about Lori and her case is to help people understand manipulative behavior, to be able to identify it, to identify the tactics that manipulative people use, and to be able to defend against it. So everything that I do on this channel is in that context. And I think what we're going to do right now is we're going to go ahead and play the entirety of the hearing so that you'll be able to see what happened this morning. The breaking news, for those of you who don't know yet, is that the judge did rule that Lori can represent herself in her conspiracy trial, which will begin on March 31st of 2025. The next status conference is going to be on January 10th. So I will continue to obviously keep track of all of these things and continue to comment on the case as well. I have a podcast called The Midlife Revolution, where I talk about healing and making small changes that improve the quality of your life. You can get that anywhere podcasts are found, but also I do an episode release every Wednesday here on YouTube and a live Q&A afterwards, where we talk about mainly about healing and improving the quality of life. So I want to go ahead and play the hearing. It's about 17 minutes long, if I remember correctly. I need to go and look. It's actually 13 minutes long. So we're going to go ahead and play the hearing in its entirety without my commentary. And then afterwards, I will give you my impressions and some of the things that I have learned about some of the legal implications for this decision. And I hope to answer your questions afterwards. So if you have a question, go ahead and put it in the chat. I'll star it so that I can answer it when the hearing is finished being played. So I'm going to go ahead and play it now.
One 704-2022-001242.
Sorry about that. I always watch things on 2x speed, and I have already watched it because it was posted quite a while ago.
Good morning, Your Honor. Katie Staub for Trina K for the state.
Can everybody hear it okay? I just want to make sure the sound is all right.
And Robert Abernathy on behalf of Lori Vallow Daybell, who's present and in custody.
Ma'am, can you tell me your name and date of birth, please?
Lori Daybell, 6/26/1973.
All right, thank you. We're here for a status conference. You've been found competent by two separate healthcare providers. Is it your intention, ma'am, you expressed earlier that you would like to represent yourself?
Too much detail until
Yes,
later.
Is that still your intention?
You know,
Yes, Your
so
Honor.
this is me
All right.
speculating. So I think, of course, it's planned to go over there. I think the plot is planned and conspired.
You
Feel
do
horrified.
understand that you have the right
Alex
to
knew,
have
Lori knew,
attorneys
Katie knew
represent
what's
you
going
during
on.
your cases?
That morning, when he went to go pick JJ up for school, he was
What
nothing
grade
happened.
did you
Like
finish in
he
school?
walked into his own murder.
Graduated
There was no
from
way
high
he could have
school.
avoided it.
Do
I
you
do
read and
speculate
understand English?
that
Have you had any drugs, alcohol, or medication in the last 24 hours?
No.
Are you currently prescribed any medications in the jail?
No.
Do you believe you're able to present a defense at trial?
I do.
Are you able to listen to what the court, counsel, and witnesses say during trial?
Yes, I will.
Do you believe you're able to ask witnesses questions that are relevant to the case and to your defense?
Absolutely.
Are you able to communicate effectively do you believe, with the court, counsel, opposing counsel, and the jury?
I do.
I will make a finding that in court, you do appear to act appropriately, speak appropriately, and communicate appropriately. Have you ever represented yourself before?
Not yet.
I do have a waiver form, one for each of your cases. You've gone over that waiver form with your attorneys.
I did.
You understand the waiver forms.
I did.
You have the right to an attorney. If you can't afford an attorney, I would appoint one to represent you. The attorney would represent you at all critical stages of the case, including before trial, at trial, and if you're found guilty at sentencing. Do you understand that?
I do.
An attorney can be of great value and assistance in criminal cases. There are serious disadvantages and dangers to representing yourself. Can you just tell me a little bit why you want to represent yourself?
Yes, Your Honor, for the past 5 years that I've been incarcerated, I have taken it upon myself to study case law and criminal rules of procedure in the state of Idaho and Arizona, as well as federally. Prior to that, for the last 10 years, prior to my incarceration, I did study procedure in family law, and I have real trial experience. I have participated in 3 different full trials from beginning to end.
In family court?
1 in family court, 2 in criminal court, 1 bench trial and 1 jury trial.
Okay. You understand that you have 2 separate cases here. On each of these cases, if you're found guilty at trial, you'd be facing a sentence of up to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 25 years.
Yes, I'm well aware of that.
And you understand that if convicted at trial, that those sentences could run consecutively or concurrently to any other sentence.
I am also well aware of that.
All right. You understand that if you represent yourself, you'll have the sole responsibility for, among other things, asserting legal defenses, interviewing witnesses, doing investigation, doing legal research, filing and arguing motions, examining and cross-examining witnesses, giving an opening statement and a final argument to the jury. Do you understand all that?
Yes, Your Honor, and I'm very prepared.
All right. Do you also understand that you'd be held to the same standard as an attorney regarding the presentation of your case? This would include knowledge of courtroom procedure, applicable case law, rules of evidence, and rules of procedure.
Yes.
All right. Each of your attorneys have gone to college, undergrad degree for probably a minimum of 4 years, and then law school for an additional 3 years. So these 2 attorneys that are here in court each have, at a minimum, if not more, 14 years of higher education, as well as probably, I'm guessing, between the 2 of them, 30 to 40 years in trial experience. Do you understand that?
Yes.
Do you understand that your case may be specifically complicated in the sense that there are complicated evidentiary issues in your case? Do you believe you're able to present a defense?
Yes, I'm well aware of them.
All right. Do you also understand that if at some point, especially if you're in the middle of trial, you decide that you would like your attorneys to take over the case, you'd be effectively waiving any ineffective assistance of counsel claim that you might have because they might like a longer time to prepare?
Correct.
All right. Do you understand that even if I may allow you to represent yourself, I'll be appointing these attorneys to represent you as advisory counsel?
That's my understanding.
All right. If you want to testify at trial, you'd not be able to testify in a narrative format. Instead, you'd need to write out the questions, and the advisory counsels would ask you questions when you testify.
Yes, that's what I'm aware of.
All right. You can change your mind about this at any time. If at any time you want to be represented by your advisory counsel, let me know. I will appoint them back to represent you as your attorneys of record. But once you make the choice to have the lawyer represent you again, I wouldn't allow you to switch back and forth. Do you understand that as well?
Correct.
You also understand that if you ask your advisory counsel to take the case back over in full, you wouldn't be able to repeat anything that had already happened in the case or do over.
Correct.
All right. Because you'll be acting as your own attorney, you'd be expected to appear for every court hearing and every day of trial. If you do not appear for hearings or trial without good cause, I could consider your non-appearance to be an indication that you want to withdraw your right to represent yourself, and I would order your advisory counsel to become your attorney. Do you understand that as well?
Sure.
Your right to represent yourself is not absolute, and what I mean by that is if you fail to follow procedures, if you don't act appropriate in the courtroom, your right to represent yourself could be revoked. Do you understand that as well?
I do understand that.
All right. Do you have any questions about anything?
I just was going to ask if we were going to move forward from this today and if we are going to be able to reset trial.
We will. All right, I did receive your form. Is this your signature at the bottom of each form?
It is?
And I think I already asked you this, but I'll ask you it again. Your signature appears on this form after you went over it completely with your attorney?
Correct?
All right, the court finds your waiver to an attorney is knowingly, intelligently, voluntarily made. I guess I should ask you, did anyone force you or threaten you to waive your right to an attorney?
No, quite the opposite.
Does anyone promise you anything in order to get you to waive your right to an attorney?
No.
All right, I do find your waiver is to knowingly, intelligently, voluntarily made. Your waiver is accepted and entered of record. You will be your own attorney on the case. I will keep these attorneys on as your advisory counsel. Again, if you change your mind and would like them to take over the case, you need to let me know, okay?
Okay.
Your current last day is May 11. I'm assuming you want to set a trial date within that last day.
Yes, I do.
All right, we're going to set a trial date March 31st for jury selection at 8:30 a.m. Well, we'll set it at, for now, 9 a.m. That could change the time, but we'll keep the date, March 31st. I'm going to, can I ask advisory counsel, in the event that she wishes to conduct interviews, would you be assisting her in that, or would your office have an investigator that would assist?
Either or.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I think generally OPDS will assign an investigator
Okay.
for that purpose, and we would ask the court to endorse OPDS on this minute, post-minute entry.
All right, the court will appoint an investigator through the Office of Public Defense Services to assist Ms. Vallow in any investigation and or setting up of interviews of any potential witnesses in the trial. I am going to set a status conference to make sure everything's on track for the trial date. I'll ask you again, my understanding is there's a large amount of discovery. You're sure that you're going to be ready in time for March 31st?
Yes, Your Honor. Also, I have a reply to the state's response. I know that we said if you were to let me go pro per, that I would have 3 days to make this response, and I have a copy for the court and a copy for the state, if I could give you that.
Response to what?
To the state's response to my motion to compel discovery that was filed prior to the Rule 11.
Okay, I'm going to have to,
I believe the public defender's office filed it, correct?
was it your prior attorneys that filed the motion to
They
compel
did,
discovery?
correct, yes.
I remember now, we did hold that in abeyance because of the Rule 11 proceedings. So you can go, you're ready to file your reply? All right.
There's one for the state as well. if he needs
Did you get,
it. But they're handwritten.
Attorney Trina K filed a response? You received that and saw that?
Yes, this is my reply to her response.
All right, I'll take a look at those pleadings because to be honest, I haven't looked at them for a little bit. I'm going to set a status conference just to make sure everything's on track. Let's set that at 8:30 a.m. Friday, January 10.
One more time, Your Honor, I'm sorry.
8:30 a.m. Friday, January 10.
Can I use your pen?
Let me write it for you, just.
Does that work for the state?
As far as I know.
Okay. Does that work for everyone on the defense?
Yes.
Yes, Judge.
So- oh. It's your turn.
Okay. Is there anything else from the state? One other thing I wanted to address. My understanding is the state, we do have two separate cases here. The state would proceed to trial on the 2021 case first. Yes.
That's correct, the first in time case.
All right. I think jury selection in this case could take longer than usual. excluding jury selection, how much trial time do you think the state would take to present their side of the case?
I'm
You
sorry,
don't know?
I don't have that
Okay.
information.
We'll wait till January to talk to Attorney K about that. Just so we can block the appropriate amount of time in March. Well, I guess it'll be mostly April.
Your Honor, did you want to set a TMC as well?
No.
FTMC.
Yeah, that makes sense. Let's set that for,
Mhm. I just want to know if we're gonna
let's set that for March 21. I'm sorry, no, not March 21. March 18. I'm going to set that before my morning calendar, my normal morning calendar, so at 8:20 a.m. All right, anything else from you?
My understanding is that it will be two totally different trials. Is that
Correct.
correct? So this is just, we're just setting things and we're just doing this for the first trial.
Right, well, you should be getting discovery for both cases as they go along, but the first trial will be on the 2021 case. And then at the conclusion of that trial, we'll talk about when we're going to try the second case.
So all discovery deadlines will be for the first 2021 case.
Presumably, yeah. But we'll talk about how much discovery there is, we would expect from the state when we come back in January. All right. Anything else?
No, thank you.
All right, we'll be at recess on this matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge.
Accidentally push a button. I'm so sorry. But thank you for alerting me. So for those of you who are just joining us, this was the full status hearing for Lori Vallow Daybell in the death of Charles Vallow, her fourth husband. Sorry guys, I'm a little discombobulated. So I apologize for not being super articulate in this moment. To recap the status conference, yesterday Lori Vallow was found competent to stand trial, and today Judge Bereskey has just granted her motion to represent herself in this trial. It is infuriating to me and very emotional. Mostly I'm feeling a lot of grief for the victims and the family members who are going to be questioned by the very person who unalived the family members. So it's very difficult. It's very difficult for me to contemplate listening to more Lori for the 4 weeks or so that this trial is likely going to take. It may not take 4 weeks. It may be only a couple of weeks. I don't know. You heard the prosecuting attorney, one of the prosecuting attorneys who was present today, did not have the information on how long it was going to take. Say hi to my puppy. And so it turns out that we're going to have to wait a while to find out how long the state thinks that they will need for their part of the case. And I'm sure at that point also Lori will let us know how long she thinks she needs for the case as well. So thank you for joining me today. Thank you for being here to watch this status conference with me. Now that I've watched it, this is the second time I've watched it now. I have some thoughts about what was said, and I just want to go over those few things. I'm happy to answer questions. Please call attention to your questions, and I will star them so that I can come back to them after I give just a few thoughts that I want to make sure that I get these out before I forget. With feelings coming up and everything, I wrote some things down so that I wouldn't forget. Okay, so first of all, I want to point out some things that Judge Bereskey said during this conference. I apologize for the dog noises, you guys. Lori is going to be held to the same standard as an attorney. First of all, Judge Bereskey did an excellent job of going through the standard questions that need to be asked when someone wants to represent themselves. Trying to shush my dog. So he covered all of the potential pitfalls with Lori of her representing herself, all of the potential things that could go wrong, all of the reasons why it's a bad idea. Maybe not all the reasons, but he did go through a significant list of items to make sure that Lori understands fully that what she's doing is a serious matter. It's not something she can go back on. And there definitely are consequences and ramifications for representing yourself. It's not the best idea. I think I've shared before, Mark Twain said, a person who represents themselves has a fool for a client. And that is definitely, that's definitely true, especially in this case. I think Lori's hubris is going to, whenever someone exhibits this amount of hubris, it reminds me of how many blind spots people like this have. They really believe that Lori really believes that she's smarter than these two attorneys who have gone to college, gone to law school, practiced law. I think the judge said a combined number of 30 years between the two of them. And Lori has a high school degree, and she went through a pretty high conflict divorce in family court. And then she had her own trial. So that's her experience. And I think Colby pointed out, well, she watched Legally Blonde. So Latter Daily Digest said she watched My Cousin Vinny. That's one of my favorite movies, actually. So Lori has a lot of blind spots. This is the delusion that she knows better than the attorneys, and also the delusion of her version of events of what occurred, and her desire to be in the spotlight, to control the narrative, and to put on a show is going to leave her very vulnerable to doing dumb things, saying dumb things, and to not go off the deep end and basically convict herself with her stupidity. So, I will move on now to just some of the other things that Judge Bereskey said. He clarified for her that she's going to be held to the same standard as any other attorney. She can't just say, I didn't know, or, can we go back and do that over? She is going to have those two attorneys as advisory counsel, and hopefully they will advise her well, because I don't want there to be any kind of, possibility for appeal and all of that kind of stuff, or mistrial. So I hope that they advise her well. Whether she takes their advice, though, that's a different matter entirely. And Lori is not one to have taken advice from people. If she decides during the course of the trial that it's not going well, and she wants her advisory counsel to take over the case again, she may have them do that. But if she does that, she waives her right to appeal based on ineffective assistance of counsel. So she, by representing herself and then maybe having her attorneys take over at some point, she waives the right to claim ineffective assistance of counsel. Yes, correct, Becky. She did go to beauty school. So she does have some post-high school education. So her hair should look great. And actually, that's the thing. Like, she went to beauty school, and yet I'm sorry to just be, this is just petty of me, but every time I see that little ponytail on the top of her head, I just want to cut it off because it looks terrible. It's not attractive. Okay, I'm done being petty now. All right, Judge Bereskey also said that she can't switch back and forth or do over anything. So if something is not going well, she decides she wants counsel to take over. They can't go back and recall a witness. They can't go back and, revise testimony or cross-examine somebody or any of that stuff. Once it's done, it's done. So if she does switch to having her attorneys take over, they can't revisit any of the case elements that have already been presented. As far as all of the court hearings and everything that's going on with the case now, she must appear at everything. So she refused transport at one point to be going for, when she was supposed to come for her first Rule 11 hearing, she refused transport and she didn't show up. So now the judge is saying, if you don't appear at every single thing, I could take that as your desire to withdraw your right to represent yourself. So if she doesn't show up one day, Judge Bereskey can say, okay, that's it. You're not pro se anymore. Your attorneys are taking over. I'm starring some of these comments as I go, just so that I can come back to them after I finish going over my notes here. So after he grants her motion, Judge Bereskey did say that the court will appoint an investigator for Lori, which means that she will have assistance in reviewing all of the discovery. She'll have assistance in setting up appointments and interviewing potential witnesses, etc. Yes, okay, thank you. Sorry, starring comments to come back to you guys. So at this point, when Judge Bereskey mentioned that the court was going to appoint an assistant for her, an investigator to help her with this case, I'm just imagining, like, between now and March 31st, Lori is going to get to play attorney. She, instead of being, doing her regular jail time, mopping floors, or I like to envision her scrubbing toilets with a toothbrush. And then the petty part of me is like, and then being forced to use it. I have petty thoughts, guys, sometimes. That's just a part of me that is snarky and rude. But I'm just imagine, instead of her doing her regular prison time, she's going to be playing lawyer. She's going to be spending her days preparing for the case. She's going to be in the law library. She's going to be preparing motions and discovery. She's going to be interviewing potential witnesses, whether live or via Zoom or whatever, how the logistics of that is going to work out, I'm not sure. But I'm just imagining, like, she's so excited to do this because she gets to play attorney for the next 2 or 3 months, December, January, February, and March. So 4 months where she gets to basically have a job and pretend like she's an attorney. So she must be really pleased with this. And it makes me mad, honestly. It really does make me angry. Well, it's not like we got here because she makes good decisions. So true. Very true. And yes, Diana Kennedy, she is mentoring death row inmates, according to her phone call with Colby. She's mentoring her little pod of death row inmates and telling them, basically probably teaching them how to manipulate people and how to get what you want. I'm really glad that this judge is no nonsense. He's not going to put up with any of her BS or grandstanding or, putting on a show type of behavior. He's going to make her stick to the case. And here's the other point that disturbs me about her representing herself is I think she very much is going to use it as an opportunity to preach her gospel, her version of the gospel. I don't think the judge is going to put up with that, with much of it. I think some of it, because her actions are so motivated by her religious beliefs, I think that probably some of it is going to have to come in as, either as testimony or through the questions that she asks. But he is not going to give her leeway to just stand up on a soapbox and preach the gospel of Lori Vallow to all of us. By the way, I always want to mention, because I always get this comment, Lori did not officially legally change her name to Lori Daybell when she and Chad got married. So legally, she is Lori Vallow. Hi, sweetheart. Thank you for being here for me. You're so sweet. I'm sorry, you guys. Okay, jump down. Thank you. So you notice that Lori introduced herself as Lori Daybell when the judge asked for her name and date of birth. However, legally, her name is Vallow. That's why the court continues to refer to her as Lori Vallow. And that's why I refer to her as Lori Vallow, because that's how the court refers to her. Nobody wants her to share their name. I get that 100%. And it's I'm sure hard for the Vallow family members to be allowed or to be subjected to listening to her still refer to herself as Vallow, but it is her legal name. So that is the reason for that. Now I want to just address, a couple of things. At the very end of the hearing, Lori submitted some paperwork to the judge. It was her response to the state's response to a motion to compel. I want to explain what that is. So when you are involved with a court case, there's always discovery. And this is the reason a lot of cases never go to trial, because a lot of times the parties to a lawsuit don't want discovery to happen, because once discovery happens, it becomes, subject to FOIA, Freedom of Information Act, where people can request to see the discovery if it hasn't been sealed by a judge. And a lot of times the parties to a lawsuit don't want the public to see the discovery. A lot of times the parties to a lawsuit don't want the other party to see the discovery. Because when we talk about discovery, we're talking about all the emails, all the text messages. Like a discovery request generally refers to all of the information that's necessary for the case to be tried. And so it'll, for example, in this case especially, would look something like all electronic communications. Oh, goodness. Sorry about that. My dogs are brother and sister, and they play fight with each other. And every once in a while, very rarely, it sounds like they're fighting for real. And they make lots of noise. So I just wanted to take care of that so that we can speak uninterrupted. So what I was talking about is discovery. So it would look like all emails, text messages, electronic communications, phone records, all of this kind of stuff related to the case, and they will give a specific time period. So for this case, they're probably going to look at everything on everybody's iCloud, phone, computer, everything from 2018, when we have recorded proof that Lori and Chad were in communication, up until, anything up until today, right? So a lot of times what will happen is there will be several things that are requested in discovery, long lists of things. And sometimes an attorney will say, we have good cause to not provide you with this information. And they can give a reason. And that's a response to a request for discovery. So the request for discovery will go, and in this case, it sounded like the request went from defense to the state, a request for discovery. And then both parties present their discovery. Both parties have access to all the discovery. And then sometimes an attorney will say, for cause, we don't want to provide this thing. What will happen then, and it sounds like what happened here, is that the party who's requesting discovery will file a motion to compel, which means, Judge, we're asking you to make them give us this discovery. We understand they say they have a reason, but we're asking the judge to come in and compel them to provide this discovery. So it sounds like what happened is that Lori's original defense attorneys filed a motion to compel the state to give discovery to the defense. and the state filed a response. Now, Lori today is filing her response to the state's response. So far, we're not privy to these documents. I don't think that they're available while the case is ongoing. So we probably won't get to see or hear exactly what's going on in discovery this way until it comes out in some other way in trial, or until it becomes available in FOIA documents. So I just wanted to point out that apparently it just looks like the defense team is asking the state to provide some discovery. The state doesn't want to give the defense team. And so now they're in a situation where the defense is asking the judge to step in and make a ruling about this discovery. So that's what was happening at the end of her hearing. So already Lori is playing attorney, knowing she's competent. She was prepared today to already be an attorney. She came prepared with a response to the state's response for motion to compel. So she was planning on this being she was planning on this hearing going her way. In other words, if she had not been allowed to represent herself, I'm sure her attorneys would have gone ahead and filed that for her instead of, signing for it. So yes, I'm getting a legal education. I too have been an observer in several court cases. Unfortunately, there have been a couple that I've had to be close to and privy to. So I do have some knowledge of a little bit of legal procedure. It's not a lot. It's like this much. Unlike Lori, I don't think that my proximity to legal cases makes me a legal expert. So I did reach out to a friend of mine who is a criminal defense attorney to ask her if she will come on the podcast, because I really would like to pick her brain about what all of this means and the potential ramifications for it and everything like that. So I am going to go now to your comments and questions. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. I'm happy to address your comments. So please call attention to your questions if you want me to see them. Yes, I have watched Legally Blonde. I've watched My Cousin Vinny. I've watched, what's the one where Jack Nicholson says you can't handle the truth? I watched that one. I love that one. Can't remember the name of it at the moment. I've watched a lot. I watched The Firm. I know how attorneys work with each other. I watched The Firm lots of times. Let's see, what other movies have I watched that give me qualifications to be an attorney? I don't know, pretty much anything with an attorney in it. I watched several episodes of Suits. Probably the whole first season of Suits. Yes, A Few Good Men. I like that one. That's such a great movie. So yeah, I've got lots of legal experience. I've read a bunch of John Grisham. In fact, do I have the book up here? I do, actually. Is the one that is the one that's the follow-up to The Firm. I haven't started it yet. It's on my list. The ones I'm currently reading are on my nightstand. The ones that I've kept because I love them are up here, along with two that I haven't read yet. I've got so many things on my list to read and consume. I did watch a lot of Boston Legal. Is that the one with William Shatner and Rob? No, not Rob. Shoot, I forget the guy's name. He was also on The Office as an actor on The Office. Anyway, we're getting off on a tangent here of all of the legal things that I've watched. But I did have a favorite episode. Boston Legal, what I loved about it was the writing was so compelling and funny. They actually had an episode where they were defending a company against an environmental organization that was suing this company because there was some kind of endangered species that was involved in the river or something like that. And it was some kind of parasite that attaches itself to salmon. Why do I remember this stuff, you guys? My brain is a mystery to me. That I remember these weird details. But the reason it was hilarious, I think, is probably why I remembered it, is because James Spader, and William Shatner are having a conversation about this case, and William Shatner is explaining to the other attorney what this endangered species of salmon is, and he says, yeah, they're parasites that attach themselves to salmon. They call them Klingons. And the reason that's hilarious is because William Shatner, of course, used to be the star of Star Trek, and their enemies were the Klingons. So I just liked how they brought in these little Easter eggs. Anyway, that was a rabbit hole. I'm sorry, you guys. I apologize. I did take my medicine today, but I'm feeling a little bit ADHD scattered. So anyway, Pelican Brief, was that about lawyers? Yes, I loved that movie. Erin Brockovich, I've watched a couple of times. Yeah, exactly. So sorry. So sorry, you guys. I have not watched Better Call Saul. Okay, I'm going to go now to your comments because I want to make sure that we stay on track and address this stuff. I could hang out with you guys all day long, but actually I can't. I have other stuff I have to do. I have pots to stir. So, okay, let's go back. Jenny Allison, thank you for being here. And thank you guys. Thank you all for being here. If you could take a second to like the video and subscribe, that's the best free way to support the channel. There is a link to my e-course in the description of this video, which is launching on January 7th. It's going to be a live 8-module course where I teach people how to recognize manipulative behaviors and tactics that narcissists and manipulators use, and how to recognize it and how to defend against it. It's going to be a comprehensive, in-depth course, and I hope that you will join us for that. Okay, thank you guys. All right, so going back to this comment, the fact that she overemphasizes that she's capable by using, for example, well aware instead of just aware makes me feel like she's trying to make up for something or not sure. IDK. Yeah, this is actually, and this is why I starred this one too. This is a garden variety narc way of responding in a situation like this. People with narcissistic traits tend to over-explain. They tend to overemphasize. Instead of saying yes, they will say absolutely. They want to be seen as a very competent, person. Obviously, Lori, in this situation, she's wanting people to see her as very intelligent. So she's going to overemphasize all of this stuff. It is a manipulation tactic. She can't stop herself. It's a part of a personality disorder that she can't stop herself from these behaviors. She is trying to make up for something. She's trying to make up for the fact that she actually is deeply insecure. She feels very unqualified to do this job. And so she's trying to convince all of us that she is qualified, that she's very qualified, very, very qualified. She's well aware, not just aware. She's definitely trying to cover up her insecurity there. Lori in Texas, thanks for being a member. I always love seeing you here. I appreciate you. She cannot just say yes. She does a good job of addressing the judge respectfully, but I'm well aware. I'm very aware. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely I am. Like, it's just the overemphasis. It is that personality disorder trait. It is on the spectrum of narcissism. Terry M says, I'm not family, but to me, Arizona dropped the ball in a major way. And this is really a waste of time and money since she already has life track record on Vallow case in Arizona. I'm guessing you're saying it's not good. They're going to lose, or the state's going to lose. The reason I wanted to address that is because or because she tells the judge correct instead of just yes. Yeah, so the reason that I wanted to address this is because, let me be clear. I do think that law enforcement did not do a thorough enough job when they arrested Alex. Was he even arrested, or did they just take him in for questioning? I guess I don't even know the answer to that. It's been too long since I've looked at that material. I believe that the state of Arizona or the police force or whoever was in charge at that moment should have done a background check on Alex at the very least, because then they would have seen that he was arrested, tried, and convicted for aggravated assault against Joe Ryan. He served time for that. If they had known that, they should have held him at least for 24 hours. You know, they have 24 hours to hold him on probable cause. And the fact that he pulled the trigger, he admitted that he pulled the trigger, he admitted that it was his gun. He makes a point of saying it was self-defense, but that is the one thing that bothers me about this case. Beyond that, I'm not a law enforcement officer. I have no idea what it's like to be a law enforcement officer. I am not any kind of a professional that has any kind of qualifications to be commenting on the competence of law enforcement. So I'm not going to go beyond that. I know a lot of people are super, super critical of law enforcement in this case, especially the Arizona. But I just want to say, we don't know the whole story. We don't have all the facts. We don't know what investigations they did do. I don't know, for example, that they didn't do a background check on Alex. I don't know that they didn't know that he was a convicted felon. So was he a convicted felon? Was that a felony? I don't know. Sorry, guys. I don't know. I'll have to go back and look again. But anyway, all of that to say, I don't want to be critical of law enforcement from the standpoint that I do not know all the details of what happened or how it went down. The other point that I want to make too is that this, to me, is not a waste of time and money. She is already serving 3 consecutive life sentences. She will never leave prison. This is about getting justice for Charles. This is about holding her accountable for Charles. So yeah, it's not going to add time. She's already going to spend the rest of her life in prison. However, I do think it is worth the money to prosecute her because I believe that Charles deserves justice. And I believe that Brandon deserves justice. Thank goodness he survived. So I just want to say that. I think it's not about adding more time to her sentence. It's just about getting justice for Charles. So as I'm reading the starred comments, I am going to go back to the chat as well and make sure that if I need to star something here, that I can as well. Yeah, Alex was just taken in for questioning. He wasn't arrested. I believe that's true. And also, yeah, I don't think that her verdict is going to get overturned. But if in the event that it does, then she's still going to serve here. But they would have to overturn all 6 of her convictions in Idaho for her to leave prison. So, yeah. Yeah, I guess some people did not know that Alex attacked Joe Ryan at a custody exchange between Lori and Joe. Alex knew where he was going to be, and he surprised him with a taser. And the family story is that his intention was to tase him and throw him in the back of the trunk and get rid of him. So it was a horrible series of events. That is a serious red flag that family members just kind of went, well, that's Alex for you. He's kind of crazy. I don't know. I don't want to revisit all of that right now. It was a terrible situation. Yeah. So I'm reading some comments just to make sure that or just so that I can star the ones that I want to address. So thank you for your patience, guys, and thanks for being here with me to go over this. And I'm glad that you're asking these questions, because this helps me think about things, and it helps bring things to mind that I haven't considered yet. So this really helps me a lot as well. And yes, this case could also bring to light where law enforcement needs to improve in that jurisdiction. I hope they'll look at this case again and then see places where they could do things differently in the future. And yes, Charles has 2 other sons with his first wife, and they have stayed largely private. I hope that they are doing well, and I hope that they get what they need out of this case as well. Yeah, 100%. Lori is the common denominator in all of this chaos. Yes. Definitely not self-defense. Yeah, and I hope they already have as well. Okay, so I'm going to jump into the past a little bit and go to some of these starred comments. Thank you guys for your contributions. It makes this channel what it is. Your kindness and respect to each other in the chat, and your contributions to each other and to me, I really greatly, greatly appreciate it. Okay, so Taylor J says, I think the hyper religiosity of it all, it's easy to forget these crimes were devious in terms of money motivations in the form of SSI. And that's so true. We a lot of times get caught up in the crazy beliefs because it's what they use to justify their behavior. But it really was about money. It was about money, power, and sex. Lindsay Blake nailed it when she said that, or I guess it was Rob Wood who said that in the opening statements of her original trial. Everything came back to that. That's what this was about. It was about Lori getting what Lori wanted. She wanted, above everything else, I really think it was money motivated. I think that was like the main motivator. And in getting the money that she wanted, she was able to be seen as someone who is powerful and in control. And she also got access to Chad, which I don't think even was really about the relations. I think it was really more about the fact that Chad was a faithful LDS member who could take her to the temple. I think that's all she cared about, because in Mormonism, the status of being sealed in the temple, that's like the top of Mormonism. That's, the highest degree of Mormon heaven. You can't get in there without having a temple marriage. And as far as I know, Lori and Charles were not sealed in the temple. And so that would have been seen, Lori would have been seen as somewhat of a second-class citizen. As a former Mormon and as someone who was married to someone who was not a member, I never was sealed in the temple to my spouse. So I was a second-class citizen in Mormonism. I know how that feels. It is a marginalization. It disqualifies you from certain leadership positions in the church. Not that women have much leadership authority in the church anyway. But for example, I never would have been called as a Relief Society president being married to somebody who was not a member, and also having never been sealed in the temple. Like that, I never would have been called to a position of leadership like that. All of my service in the church was as gospel doctrine teacher, as Relief Society teacher. I was in the primary presidency. The primary is the children's organization, but I wasn't the primary president. I was one of the counselors. So it's just, you really are kind of a second-class citizen. And I know that Lori would have seen that as, she would not have liked that. She would have wanted to be seen as, the best, right? The most Mormon. Okay, so I'm going to go back and star a couple of things. Yeah, after not hearing from her at all until the craziness at sentencing, it'll be very interesting to watch her represent herself. Interesting is a good word. It'll be interesting in one way. It'll be horrific in another way. It's going to be a mess. It's going to be chaos. Goodness. I'm sorry, guys. Yeah, I was definitely the redheaded stepchild of Mormonism. So, okay. So back to some of these starred comments. You guys, thank you again so much for your participation. It makes lives like this a lot more valuable to people to understand all of the intricacies of this case. It's a lot to understand because of the complicated nature of it. There were so many people involved, and also the religious implications. A lot of people don't understand the intricacies, thank you, sorry, of the Mormon culture. So it's one thing to know a little bit about Mormonism or to know that Mormons exist and to maybe know some people who are Mormon. It's another thing entirely to understand the culture and to understand how Chad's crazy beliefs meshed with mainstream Mormon beliefs. That also is sort of a rabbit hole for another time. However, I do have several videos on my channel already. One is about Chad Daybell's Little White Book, the sort of extension of the cult culture in Idaho, and basically how his beliefs, where they do and do not agree with mainstream Mormon beliefs. So I do have some videos on my channel about the Daybell trial where I go over a lot of that. I also go over the probably most watched video on my channel is about whether or not Lori and Chad really believe it. There's another video about when I believe they actually met. So there's a lot of information on my channel about the case. If you're new to the case or if you're new to this part of the case, I'm going to continue to put out more information about it, including an entire timeline from 2018 until the present that I will have up on my channel prior to the trial starting, so that those who are new to the case can have a more comprehensive view. I also highly recommend the crash course on the Daybell case that is on Hidden True Crime. Lauren Mathias does an excellent job of detailing the whole case from beginning to end. So if you're new to any part of this case, she does a very comprehensive job of covering all of that. So, thanks, Nerms. That's so kind of you. Yeah, thank you for saying this, Taylor J. I'm Colby's age, so I relate a lot to Tylee, and it breaks my heart that her adulthood was stolen. She was robbed of the opportunity to heal and bond with family like Megan, who truly understand love. I wish so much that I had gotten to spend more time with Tylee. I think she was probably 10 or 11 the last time that I saw her at a family gathering, and she is the same age as one of my daughters, very close in age to one of my daughters, and it makes me so sad that her life was stolen. And it also makes me really sad that I was not close enough to that part of the family to be able to be there for her. You know, distancing, and I've talked about this on my channel before, this is one of my biggest regrets. Distancing myself from Lori and the Coxes also meant distancing myself from Colby and Tylee, and I never did meet JJ. And I've had to forgive myself for the impact, the impact of that. So I do feel sorry for Adam. I think this has been really hard for him as well. I think that the bombshell of having to confront the fact that your brother and sister are monsters is really difficult to do. So I have a lot of compassion for Adam and what he's going through, and the work that he's going to have to do if he wants to heal from this. Yeah, he was really trying to help Charles. And he was really he was the only one that really, besides Charles, that really saw Lori for who she was, these crazy beliefs, so was willing to call her beliefs crazy. Janice's response was that, she's not hurting anyone with these beliefs. Adam was the one who said, that's crazy. You shouldn't be saying things like that. And because he called her out, I think is the reason that Lori later told law enforcement that he was trying to unalive her. She projected back onto him because, again, people with narcissistic traits hate to be exposed for who they truly are. Thanks, Terry. I appreciate you. And thanks for being here. Oh, goodness. So, okay, I'm going to star a couple more things. Smiling Jocks, thanks for becoming a member. I appreciate you. Lori, you have all the grace in the world for being snarky and during your deconstruction. Trying to go back and star some things before I lose track of the chat of where you guys are. I'm actually not that far behind, so that makes me happy. Yeah, it makes me think about that time in my life as well. When I was the age of Tylee, like I was having a really hard time. My relationship with my parents was not good, and I didn't have a lot of adults in my life who cared that much about me, so it was hard. Thanks, SV Kathy. I appreciate that. Adam is very defensive about his Mormon beliefs. He still is in the church. And so he is going to see any challenge of Mormonism as the one true religion. He's going to see that as threatening to his beliefs. So I think that's going to be hard. No, I'm not Rex's daughter. Rex is my uncle. Rex is the youngest of the children in the Cox family. My dad, Janice is the oldest, and then my dad, and then they have one more sister, and then Rex is the youngest. This interview that she's referring to, is on Vinnie Politan's show. I had a hard time finding it too. No, Adam was not on Mormon Stories. What was happening is that Vinnie Politan invited both Adam and John DeLynn on his show to talk about the case. And John DeLynn and Adam had a heated exchange. And so that's what happened there. Okay, I'm going back to the starred comments that I want to get to. Yes, she's so proud of herself, and it is disgusting. And I think we're just going to see more arrogance from her. And I agree with you, Terry M. This was greed, but religion did play a part in it because they used these religious beliefs to justify their actions. And I think we can't really talk about this case without talking about the religious aspect of it. And to answer your question, Jenny, I think the reason that Vinnie had Adam on for the entirety of the show. Rex was on for a short time as well. I think there was one other expert, an attorney or something like that in the course of this show. Vinnie invited John DeLynn on because John DeLynn is largely recognized as an expert on Mormonism, because on his show, Mormon Stories Podcast, which is the longest continuously running podcast in history, I think he started podcasting in 2003. And he also he'll have faithful people on his show. He will have fringe people on his show. He will also have people who have left the church and are deconstructing from it. And he also has a PhD in psychology. So he is an expert on religious behavior, on religious scrupulosity. And so people have him on their show to answer questions about Mormonism. And I can't even remember exactly what the disagreement was, but John Dehlin referred to a group of people as Mormons, and Adam took issue with that. He said, why don't you say, why do you say Mormon? He was wanting them to say something else. I can't remember whether he was wanting John to call them LDS or whether he was wanting him to call them something else. I don't remember exactly what the disagreement was, but yeah, he let them go back and forth for a little bit, and then he did offer Adam the opportunity to have the last word. And so, let's see. Oh yeah, Taylor J says Adam began his response to John Dehlin with, "I don't know who this guy is." John, whoever, whatever. It was very dismissive, and which I thought was rude. And I think it was just because Adam was taken aback by, it was what John Dehlin was saying is threatening to his belief system, and so I think he was a little bit activated because of that. So, yeah, and if you want to know the truth about the Mormon Church, don't ask a Mormon. Don't ask a mainstream member of the LDS Church, because what they believe and know about their own history is not the whole story, and it's not an accurate story. I have done a lot of research looking at source documents and looking at historical evidence and looking at commentary and documentary evidence from both sides of the story. And I can tell you that when I was a member of the LDS Church for the first 40 years of my life, I was a faithful, believing member. I was a card-carrying member. I went to the temple, not as often as Lori, but I was very heavily involved in the church. I was very, very faithful. And I'm learning things now that I was never told, that I never knew, that have been left out and whitewashed from the history. And so you can't really ask a faithful member of the church about the church, because there are lots of things that they don't know about their own religion and about the real history of the religion. And by the way, I highly recommend Mormon Stories podcast. It was instrumental in my deconstruction process. I needed that lifeline. I needed to know that I wasn't crazy. I needed to know that the things that I was discovering have been corroborated by experts and other people. I needed to know that there were other people going through a faith crisis too. And it was so important for me to hear other people's stories. And you can pick and choose from, literally all walks of life. I think they have somewhere around 2,000 episodes. And it was such an important thing for me in the time that I was deconstructing. And I still now go back to get more information, and I follow them. I donate to them because I believe so much in how important their work is. And I really love and appreciate John Dehlin. He's been a great mentor to me, as well as I've been navigating this new world of YouTube. So yeah. Okay, thank you for reminding me. Adam was upset because John said Mormons. Adam said it's not just Mormons, it's all Christians. So that was the issue. But yeah, so Adam believes that what Chad and Lori were saying is not LDS doctrine, but it is rooted in LDS doctrine. It really is. The idea that you can see that you can be visited by people who have already passed on, the idea that you can receive your own revelations, the idea that evil spirits can inhabit bodies, all of that is rooted in LDS doctrine. And so I've done a lot of episodes on that on my channel and on other channels. Probably the biggest, most important episode, if you have been following this case, that you need to go watch on Mormon Stories, is the panel discussion that I did with John Dehlin, Mindy Caldwell, and Lauren Matthias of Hidden True Crime, where we literally spent 5 hours dissecting the book Visions of Glory, which was Lori's Bible. It's like the Bible, the Book of Mormon, and Visions of Glory. That book is where they came up with a lot of the ideas about possession and evil spirits and light and dark and things like that. And we spent a lot of time talking about what is rooted in LDS doctrine and how influential and harmful that book was, and also the connections that that book has to Tom Harrison, Tim Ballard, Jody Hildebrand, Ken Krogh, a lot of the other Mormons who have been convicted of crimes against people. So that episode, I really highly recommend that you go watch. It's actually 2 episodes. One is on the book specifically, and the other one is on all the people connected to the book. So go and listen to it on double speed if you need to. So and then I also had a Mormon Stories episode that I did during Lori's trial. That was the first time that I started speaking up, was during Lori's first trial. I was interviewed first by Justin Lum, and then I believe that I was on the Lori Vallow subreddit, where someone on that subreddit recommended to Lauren Matthias that she reach out to me as a family member, as the only family member at that time who was talking about Lori at all. And then Lauren interviewed me, and she recommended to John DeLynn that he interview me. And so, yeah, I did a Mormon Stories episode of my own. It's hard for me to listen to because I'm in a completely different place now than I was when I first went on. And a lot of my ideas and opinions about different things have changed. And I've also become much more educated about the true Mormon history, and I've deconstructed all my faith. And so it's a lot different now. When I went on Mormon Stories in, I believe it was May 1st of 2023, I had just resigned from the church in February. So I was brand new to deconstructing my whole religion. And so I'm in a very different place now than I was there. So yeah, so thank you for mentioning that. I think it's an important resource for people who are following this case. Diana Kennedy says, I can't believe she's able to choose witnesses and jury, ugliness all around. Yeah, it's thinking about Tom Evans, right? When he saw Lori Vallow in the courtroom and knew who she was and what the case, was going to cover. He didn't know details, but he knew who Lori Vallow was. And I can't imagine what it would be like to be a juror and to be questioned by someone who is accused of unaliving people. That would be horrible. And yes, choose witnesses. She can call witnesses. She can decide what witnesses are going to appear on her behalf in her defense. What is that going to be like? It's going to be awful, guys. I'm sorry. It just is. It is going to be awful. So yeah, I just have so many feelings. There's so much grief that comes up. Just breathing. Thank you guys for being patient with me. I appreciate it. Okay, back to comments. Ugliness all around. I agree. It's terrible. So Fionn, I don't want to try to pronounce your name because I'm going to get it wrong, but who's filming the chains on her feet? So right now, Judge Bereskey has said that, yes, there can be cameras in the courtroom. He has so far has not allowed anything to be live streamed, obviously. But there is a pool camera. That means that only one news outlet allowed to have a camera in the courtroom at a time. And because they can't have, 23 cameras from all the different stations that want to have cameras in there. So the pool camera that's been chosen is from Fox 10 Phoenix. That is Justin Lum's channel. He's the original reporter on this case. And so that would be the Fox 10 Phoenix camera that is that's in the courtroom. And I'm frankly glad that they're focusing in. Like, let's remind everybody, she is a convicted red rummer. She deserves to be in chains. And I found it hilarious that she can't even, like, her attorney had to write for her because she can't hold a pen and write because her hands are cuffed together. So she's trying to move papers around with her hands handcuffed and appear like a competent attorney, which brings me to some of the other comments that people have made. I understand this may seem petty. Do we know if she'll be able to dress in street clothes for the trial? Will she be shackled? Yes, it's nuts. My understanding is that yes, she will be allowed to wear street clothes. She will have somebody who will provide those for her. I don't know if they'll ask her mother to bring clothes in for her, or if they'll get somebody, but she is allowed to wear street clothes. She is allowed to make her appearance presentable. She will not probably be in handcuffs or shackles. Somebody commented yesterday that they believe she's going to be in a shock belt. Apparently, Sarah Boone wanted to represent herself, and they were saying that's what she would have, a shock belt around her waist, which I think presumably is some sort of a taser device. So if she tries to run, a bailiff can push a button and she'll go down. It seems barbaric, but then again, she is a convicted Red Rummer. So I think that's what's probably going to happen. I don't know how much we'll find out about that, but yes, she will be able to wear street clothes and appear to be more normal. And yes, she's already wasted millions of taxpayer dollars. She is a waste of space. She is a despicable human being. This is wonderful. The name is pronounced Finn McCool. Thank you for helping me out. It's an Irish mythological hero name. I love that. I have an Irish heritage, and Ireland is a bucket list place for me. I'm glad that people are reminded of how horrible she is. She is really horrible. And this is the reason why I used to really believe in the death penalty. Because I believed that, if you unalived someone, you also did not deserve to be alive, and all of that. But since then, I've done a lot of research on the death penalty, and when Chad was sentenced to death, I had some really unexpected feelings of grief for the human family, not grief for Chad, and I do believe that the death penalty was warranted. I'm glad I'm not the person who has to make that decision, though, because I have a lot of feelings about it. I posted a video with my reaction about it that was very emotional, and I made it members only because it's an unpopular opinion to not be pro-death penalty, especially in a case that involves your own family members. There's still a lot that I have to unpack about that, and I may at some point repost it along with another. I recorded another episode for my podcast about the death penalty and all the research that I did regarding that. And I never did post it or make it public. So I may merge those two videos and repost them prior to the trial. But it's an unpopular opinion. And whenever I express an unpopular opinion that people aren't really ready for, I lose a lot of followers, a lot of subscribers, which is fine with me because I think it curates my audience. And so, I probably will post it again at some point, but I want to review all of that again before I put it up there. Yeah. Terrible, horrible, barbaric. That's true. But he was also a serial escapist. So here's the thing. I don't think Lori wants to escape. I really don't. I think she sees herself as a martyr, that she's in prison because of her beliefs, which makes her just like Joseph Smith. And she wants to put on this show. So this is true. And this is true. Okay. Oh yeah, but Ted Bundy actually did attend law school. So anyway, a lot of inmates study for their law degree while they're in prison, and I'm sure they have like a little study group and things like that. So anyway, back to some of your starred comments. Thank you for your patience. Thanks for your comments and your questions. I think this informs a lot of people, and I think this is valuable. So I appreciate you being patient with me as I go over this. She'll definitely subpoena Adam Colby and Kay. It's a real possibility. I think Kay will probably be called by the prosecution anyway. I think Adam will be called, and Colby probably will be called by the prosecution anyway. So how is she not going to go down the rabbit hole and preach the gospel? I think I addressed this a little bit, that I think Judge Bereskey is going to put some pretty tight restrictions on how much she is allowed to say or preach about her crazy beliefs, about her version of religion. So thank you for these questions. Nurm says, will her defense be that she was not involved, a justification, or that his death was a personal miracle from God? Should be interesting. I don't know. I think that if you look at the facts of what happened, her probably most likely tactic in defending herself is going to be that Alex was the one that pulled the trigger. He was protecting me from Charles, who was attacking me. I think she's going to stick with the narrative that she originally told police when she was interviewed, which is that Charles was having an affair. He got mad at her for going through his phone, and that Alex was just my protector, and he's the one who pulled the trigger. I didn't have anything to do with it. But the evidence that we're going to see is that I think allegedly it was premeditated and set up. And love you too, Monty D. Thanks for being here. And I think that when I very first heard about this, I knew it was not self-defense. Just knowing Alex and his history, knowing Lori and her manipulation, absolutely not. But I was not there, and there was no way for me to offer my opinion because it's just an opinion. I didn't have any proof. But now we're going to see the proof that she and Alex allegedly planned this far in advance, and then came up with some kind of a plausible scenario to make it look like it was self-defense. So, will she be allowed to look professional? Yeah, we already covered that. Jewel Gazer, illusions of grandeur is a classic psychotic symptom. Yeah, delusions of grandeur, where you think that you are way more important than you are. You think that you are smarter than you are. You think that you are the most important person, again, like the main character, and everybody else is just a supporting actor in your story. The last Goonie, is she doing this just so she doesn't have to wear the orange jumpsuit during her trial? That's probably part of it. I mean, her defense attorneys could have petitioned for her to be in street clothes. I don't remember what happened with that in Idaho. I know she was wearing, I do remember seeing her appear in street clothes sometimes. But I know at her sentencing, she did not. So I don't know. I don't remember all the ins and outs of that. It's too fuzzy, and I don't really want to go back and get into that at the moment. Yes, there probably will be lots and lots of objections from the prosecution, for sure. She won't mind a shock belt as long as it's Gucci. So true. Those chains around her ankles look so nice on her. It's definitely a good reminder of who she really is. Yep. So will Lori have access to all of this evidence? Yes, she will get to have access to all of it. She'll get to see all of the discovery. Honestly, though, I don't think that's very different than the way it was in the first trial as well. Like, her attorneys could have shown her any of the discovery and questioned her about it prior to the trial. So she will have access to it. Not only that, but she'll have access to all the witnesses. She'll be able to interview all of the witnesses prior to the trial. Yep. Awful. Taylor J. Also, it doesn't seem like she ever, quote unquote, lost an argument. So her first experience with that will be on camera, in public, and humiliating. Oh, goodness. Yes, that's true. I think that throughout her life, whenever someone challenged her, and this certainly was my personal experience, whenever someone challenged her, she would manipulate, she would gaslight, she would darvo, which is where a manipulator will deny. If you accuse them of something, they'll deny it. They will accuse you of being the person, the at-fault party. They will reverse blame onto you. And I forget what the V is. I just did this for my e-course, but it's running out of my brain because I have too many other things on my mind right now. So just take my e-course, you guys. I'll teach you all about it. The link to sign up for it is in the description of this video. So my brain can't be two places at once. So I'm going to go back to these starred comments. Thank you guys for your comments. Thanks for being here. Thanks for your support. Please take a second to like the video and subscribe so that we can have more conversations like this where I answer all your questions. I'm guessing that you're saying, I wonder if she'll use her representation status to contact CAF. Do you mean Chad? I absolutely think she will. I think I don't know what the rules are about having a convicted red rummer who is on death row appear as a witness in a case. He would have to be instrumental to the defense or to the prosecution, I think, in order to be allowed for that to be allowed. Lori will have to, as the attorney on her case, present compelling reason to have Chad testify as a witness. It could be, too, though, that the prosecution might want to hear from Chad as well. Yeah, and thank you, Taylor. Deny, attack, reverse, victim, and offender. So they'll deny that they did the thing you're accusing them of. They will attack you for bringing it up. They will reverse blame to make you the one at fault. They will play the victim, and reverse victim and offender basically means they're going to change places with you. They're going to play the victim and pretend that you are the offender. That is a classic manipulation technique, and I can teach you how to defend against it, because that was one of the things I had the hardest time with when I was in my marriage, was because I'm an empath. When somebody accused me of something, I would really take it to heart and say, did I do that wrong? And I would start replaying the scenario in my head and trying to think about that rather than staying on the narrative that I already knew this other person was at fault. So it was really hard for me, but I learned how to do it. It can be done. So we were talking about Chad as a witness. Yeah. So I don't know what the rules are about that. But I'm sure she will try. I'm sure that is a big motivation for her. Lisa says, I'm personally happy to watch her dig her own pit. She will have no one else to blame when she's found guilty. That is very true. Eleanor Nelson asks, history question, has anyone ever successfully defended themselves in court? If you mean like got themselves acquitted of charges, I don't know the answer to that, but I want to find out. So I will go down that rabbit hole for you, and I will let you know what I find. So hit notifications so that you'll know when I come out with a new video. Jenny Allison says, I know Arizona really messed up on this case. Charles and the kids could be alive if they listened to Charles and Adam. They should have committed Lori. Alex used a weapon when a felon and should have been arrested. Yeah, so this is a complicated topic about Lori having to be committed. And I went over this in an interview with a therapist, an EMDR therapist that I had on my podcast. When someone is recommended for involuntary committal, the people reviewing that person's case and that person's mental health status, their only criteria for holding someone without their consent is to assess whether this person is a danger to themselves or others. And I'm sure you can imagine, with as manipulative as Lori is, she is very good at convincing people. She's very charming. And I'm sure she convinced the evaluators that she was not a danger to herself or others. And that's why she was not committed. So saying that they should have, well, probably, but they probably only got a short evaluation with her. She doesn't have to take an MPIIA test or anything like that. That's a psychological evaluation that reveals manipulators. And so, the evaluation most likely would have been an in-person visit with a therapist who's qualified to evaluate people. And she probably just manipulated them and was charming and told them, look, this is silly. I never said that. He's just mad because he's having an affair, blah, blah, blah. I can just imagine what she would have said to that evaluator. Alex should not have had a weapon, and he should have been arrested. I totally agree with you, period. Willow Fire, in my humble opinion, the whole thing was a premeditated setup. I agree with you. Charles was never going to leave the house alive, sadly. I agree with you on that. I totally agree. Lindsay Harris says, I do imagine Charles's sons will end up testifying, though, because remember, Lori actually texted them and said he had a heart attack. That's key. True, Lindsay. That is a very good point. I think that they probably will be called to testify about what they were told and their interactions with Lori before, during, and after the whole crime, alleged crime. I really hope that the prosecution is as competent as they appear right now. They appear to be very smart people, and I do think that they will go at her full guns. And here's the other interesting thing. When someone represents themselves, the prosecution will take full advantage of that, 100%. They know that Lori is not going to be well-versed in procedure and code, and they will do everything in their little bag of tricks to throw her off, to get her unsteady on her feet, to get her objections thrown out, to object to everything that they legally can. I mean, it's going to be that's a prosecutor's dream, I think, is to go up against someone who's pro se. So I hope that they will have an excellent prosecution. I think we did address this about the attire for court. She'll be in street clothes. Lindsay Hendricks, remember the divorce was happening, but then Lori came back from Hawaii and they decided to work things out. She's talking about Lori and Charles's divorce. I believe Charles did file for divorce in January of 2019. And then when Lori came back from Hawaii, they decided to work things out. And there were texts back and forth with Lori about smoothing finances and things like that. So we will get to see probably a lot of that information coming out in the trial. Lindsay also says Charles was worth more dead and still married than he was alive and divorced. That's true. Lori wouldn't have gotten parental loss benefits for JJ or spousal loss for herself. That is also true. So again, this was a lot of financial motivation. Definitely. Okay. Some more comments for you guys. Thank you so much for being here to unpack this with me. Okay, yeah, so this has been happening to a lot of people, Jenny. I'm sorry. There is some kind of a glitch with my automated system sending people who've signed up for my webinar are getting a payment link that is just a bunch of gobbledygook, a bunch of code. I will be emailing people individually with a payment link, so I really appreciate that. Thanks for calling that out. So if anybody else has experienced that. Also, there are several people who have registered for the e-courses whose email addresses are not valid email addresses. So I don't know what to do to contact those people. I don't know. I have to come up with some kind of a solution about that. So if you signed up for the e-course and you didn't get a welcome email, please reach out to me again, because it's likely because your email address was not a valid email address. I apologize. Willow Fire, this is true. Very typical response from a manipulative person is, you're too sensitive. That's so true. Lori will not be able to formulate legal arguments to keep her medical records out of the trial. Her mental health records, I definitely think those will come in. And I don't think she's sophisticated enough to figure that out, but she does have assistance counsel. They can guide her through how to do that. I don't know what the rules are, what they are and are not allowed to do, but I'm assuming that it's basically like they're basically the attorneys in the background, and Lori's just saying, well, I want to do X, Y, Z. They're going to tell her either, yes, you can do that. No, you can't. And if you can, here's how. That's, I think, basically what they're going to do. I hope a victim's advocate is now prepping them for what's going to come to as victims and family. I feel for all of you. Thank you. I hope so too. I need to be in touch with the court to find out how I can attend. So I have to figure all that stuff out now as well. Yeah, and she's going to have to think on her feet, formulate questions on the go, She's going to have to figure out cross-examination of the prosecution witnesses. She cannot charm herself out of this one. I think she's going to have a very hard time. And I don't see her relinquishing control, though. Even if it's not going well, I very seriously doubt that she is going to turn it back over to her attorneys. That would be so shameful for her. It would prove to everybody that she doesn't know what she's doing, and she will not do it. 100%. She will never give up that control unless she's compelled to. So, Taylor J, actually from court watching, I've seen a pro se defendant be harder for the prosecutor because it doubles their work. They have to go above and beyond to protect the defendant's rights for her. Yeah, thank you for pointing this out. That's a tricky situation. Oh, is this what happened? Was she never evaluated? I thought she was evaluated. She said she passed with flying colors. It would be so shocking if she had lied about that. She convinced a police officer to help her get out of the committal document being served. It's not beyond belief to me that she talked her way out of the hospital very fast. Oh yeah. Yeah. So she talked to the police officer. The officer's like, why don't you just go do it? I'm sure you're not crazy. It's easy to get out of. So Terry says, it's not that easy. It can be done. I've done it with my brother. The evaluation is not supposed to listen to outside people. When they contacted me to pick up, I set them straight. Arizona is 48 hours, I think. Okay. So thank you for clarifying that. Yes, the prosecution can learn from the Darrell Brooks case. I don't know anything about that case except that he represented himself, and I probably won't dig into that. The standby lawyers are now her law clerks. Basically, I mean, they're there as advisory counsel, which means if Lori wants to do something, they basically have to advise her. Either I don't think that's a good idea, or no, you can't do that procedurally, or whatever. And then to help her file papers and file motions and interview witnesses. And, they can't really tell her how to try the case. But if there's something she wants to do, they have to help her do it, basically. So it's crazy. Yes, I've had weird email difficulties. It's been very, very, very crazy. Okay, so I'm going back to review the comments that I starred a little bit earlier. Thank you guys for being here and listening to this hearing with me. I do really appreciate it. Unstarring the ones that I have already addressed. Okay. Allowed attire. Yes, we already addressed that. Okay, so Freedom and Coffee. I really don't understand why they had to go to court to get her approved to represent herself. Why can't they just let her? I guess they're trying to prevent her from suing them later. Yes, that's true. It is her Sixth Amendment right to represent herself. They had to do it. They had to do it methodically. She had to be proved to be competent. She had to be evaluated. They have to do all of this on the record, by the books, to prevent the possibility of a mistrial or her suing them later. So they do have to do all of this, very methodically. Colby is going live tonight at 7. That's awesome. I hope you guys will be there for that. I will be at my daughter's choir concert. MB, everyone's worried she's going to make this into a circus. What if the opposite and she does better and gets acquitted? I don't think she's going to get acquitted. I think the evidence is too compelling, and I think that her representing herself, I think the jury will see her arrogance and her conceit and her hubris, and I don't think that we need to worry about her getting acquitted. But I do appreciate the consideration because it's something to consider, right? Prior to the sentence, were you thinking you did or didn't want that as a sentence? I thought I did want the death penalty. I really did think that that's what I wanted. And then once it happened, I had some very big feelings, some very complicated feelings about it. So I will, if you remember, you can go back and watch that video. But I'm going to combine those two videos that I did, and then and repost it later. Lindsay Hendricks, Mormons get their undergarments in prison. I can imagine it would suck not to be able to go to the temple anymore, but I guess that's not necessarily a religious right. I think that they are allowed to wear their undergarments in prison because, because it is a religious issue. I think they probably are, but I have no idea. I have no idea. Yeah. Okay. Just a couple more questions I want to address here. Thank you guys for asking questions. It's really important to understand this. Lindsay Hendricks, didn't Charles email Chad like a week before the incident? I think somebody addressed the answer to this because I remember starring it. The emails were dated June 29th, 2019. So what happened was Lori pretended to be Charles, emailing Chad to ask Chad to fly down to Arizona and help Charles write a book. And the reason they did that was to conceal Chad's travel plans from his wife. So Chad did come down to Arizona for preparing a people conference. That's where I think Lori and Chad met for the first time. And Chad apparently did a podcast and stayed in Lori's house and all of that kind of stuff. So all of that's going to come out again for sure. And yes, Adam was texting Charles when he was getting into town because he was supposed to meet him. They had planned to have some kind of intervention for Lori where they were trying to get the stake president involved to take away her temple recommend, because Charles believed that if the stake president told Lori that she couldn't go to the temple anymore, that would sort of snap her out of this religious delusion. And so that was the plan. Adam and Charles were supposed to meet, I think, at noon on the 11th to come up with a plan for the intervention. And then obviously, Charles stopped responding to Adam. Adam then left town because he didn't know why Charles wasn't responding, and Adam did not find out from the family members what happened. Nobody told Adam. He found out from the friend that he was staying with. So it was a super unfortunate set of circumstances. So we covered this, and then Adam say early on he was texting Charles. Yes. So we just covered that. So thank you so much. There's speculation that Chad intercepted Tammy's email and she may have never seen it. Yes. So we're talking about Charles did email Tammy to say that Chad and Lori were having an affair, or that he believed they were having an affair. There is speculation that Chad may have intercepted that email. She may have immediately deleted it without reading it, but we will never find that out. We don't know unless Chad decides that he wants to tell us about it. He had a loyal LDS. She was a Jack Mormon for a time. She drank, girlfriend with a daughter. He could have had a good life and become an attorney. He threw that all away. Who are we talking about? Is this the other case? Aaron, let me know who you're talking about there, because I thought this was about this case. Is it? I don't know. Raffin Raffer, I will never not love saying this name. This Lori's last chance to inflict hurt on the victims face to face, especially Kay forgetting Charles's life insurance and Kay loving JJ so very much. I agree with you. I think that's really, really true. So yeah, totally possible. Yeah, the evidence is very strong against her. I don't think we need to worry. Didn't Alex out on the Joe Ryan case? If he'd been convicted as a felony, couldn't or shouldn't have been able to continue to purchase guns? That's true. I don't think he pled out, because he definitely served jail time. Definitely. I don't know all of the details. Because again, when something like this would happen in the family, there would be like the official family story, and then there would be reality. And a lot of times we never did find out reality. And that's one of those cases for me. Like I've learned more truth about my family by reading FOIA documents than by actually talking to family members. And this is one of those cases I haven't dug into it yet. So I think that only her, I think her immediate family will only come to court to testify if they are compelled to. I don't think they'll be there to sit behind her and support her. they didn't do it in Idaho. So Stacy asks, do you find it difficult when there's a day like today? This has been a lot to turn it all off and be present elsewhere. I struggle with that. Yesterday was a long day. I was live streaming for 6 hours yesterday. Today, this live stream will be the end. And then I am going to put it out of my mind. I'm going to go spend time with Samuel. I'm going to go to my daughter's choir concert, enjoy my evening. But I will have to do some processing of my feelings for all of this and do some serious self-care. So you probably won't see me online for a couple of days. Although I do usually do a Sunday live. So I'm going to try to still do my Sunday live with intentions for the week and some support of this community, supporting each other in your intentions to make positive changes in your life. So we're definitely going to be doing that. Do it every Sunday. I try to do it every Sunday, Sunday afternoon. So orange jumpsuit definitely fits Mormon modesty standards. That's right. No shoulders showing. Although now there is a prototype of a garment with no sleeves for warmer climates. So isn't that interesting? More details about Chad being a weirdo middle school dweeb and like she barely grazed him when walking by and it knocked his socks off. Yeah, exactly. Ted Bundy did not get acquitted, right? Are you saying that like he was successful in defending himself? Anyway, yes, please like the stream to show your support. Thank you so much. I appreciate you guys being here. Thanks, Terry. I really appreciate this too. You guys are so kind. So do we know if the Arizona case can bring up the Idaho judgment? I don't know the answer to that question, but I'm certain it will be addressed because that's something that, of course, the prosecution is going to want people to know, is going to want the jury to know. The defense is not going to want people to know the details of the other cases because this happened prior to all of that. I don't think that it's going to be allowed, but I'm sure it's going to be argued. Yeah, she was never really... she never really cared about modesty, and she never really cared about the garment issue. Okay, guys, I love you so much. Thank you so much for being here. Please subscribe. Please like. Please share the video. I am going to go live my life now. I have pots to stir and things to do. So I thank you so much for your time today, for being here with me and helping me go through this. I really... appreciate your time and your care for me, for this case, for the victims, for justice. And I really appreciate you more than you could possibly imagine. This helps me so much. And if I didn't have it here to unpack, I would be unloading this on my partner and my family members who don't really want to talk about the case. So I really appreciate you guys being here. Oh, okay. Aaron, your dad worked on the Bundy case in the 70s. That's amazing. Wow. Crazy. Yes. Hit the like on your way out. Thank you so much for being here. You guys have a wonderful day. Please be good to each other, but most of all, be good to yourself.